So this is my talk, and honestly I had nothing to do with the title today. My blog is called A Difference, and this is 5 minutes for me to make a difference. And tagline on my blog is we sometimes feel that what we're doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. I'm going to talk about some of those drops. And it's not about me. A lot of times people look at some of the stuff that's going on my students' blogs and they say to me, well, how do you do all that? How do you manage to find the time to do that? And what they don't understand is that it's not me that's doing it, it's the students. And it's not about how hard that I work when I'm planning a lesson. It's much more about how hard the students work living that lesson. How hard do they work as they're trying to understand what's going on, internalize it. They watch it, they do it, and then they teach it. And we see that in the blogs. It's not about how well I teach it, it's about how well they teach it. Because you don't have to tell a room full of teachers that you don't learn anything so deeply as when you have to teach it. And so that's something that I try to pass on to my students and find ways to get them to do it. It's not about covering material, it's about uncovering material. It's about getting kids so turned on and so engaged with what they're learning and what they're doing in class that they want to do it when they're under the covers in bed late at night, when they're posting stuff to the blog at 2 a.m. and writing about the stuff that they're learning. It's not about the tests they write, because there's a real problem with the tests they write, because afterwards they come back and they say, oh, now I understand, now I get it. But their final grades are based on those tests. And does that really reflect what they've done and what they've learned? And it's not about the stories that I tell, it's about the stories that they remember. It's about the stories that I'll use a story to hook them into learning in my class, but it's about the stories that they tell when they use what happened in class as images to tell a story about what they learned. And there's a lot of talk about this best practice stuff, and there just ain't no such thing. It's all about beta practice. It's about this idea that you're in a constant state of renewal, constantly wondering, what can I do now that I couldn't do before? What's the next thing that I can try? Something different, take a risk. It's an intensely social activity, learning. It's about getting together as a group, because when we really learn something, it's when we connect with people and have a conversation with them and talk to them. And that's what learning really looks like. And it's really messy. And sometimes when you try stuff, you end up with mud on your face. And you don't look clean and professional and perfect. And that's not what it's about. It's about taking a risk and trying things and seeing what happens. And no one's going to follow the same path. And no one has one answer on how to do it right. It takes time. One drop at a time. Every day, every class. You keep pushing, you keep exploring, you keep trying. You find something new, you find something works, and you share it. And that kind of inspires all of us to take that next step as well. It's not about the textbooks that they read, because they don't. But it is about the textbooks that they write, which is what they do on my class blogs. Each student every day writes one page in the textbook, written by a student for students. And then they pass that on to the next student to continue the story the next day. It's not about the mind maps they make. It's about the mind maps they share. That picture was taken by a student in my grade 11 pre-calc class. They're not allowed to take pictures of their faces. Look how she dealt with that. And in that mind map, it's got everything that she learned about that. But it's not about what she learned. It's how she shares that with the other students. And so the students get to wade through each other's thinking. Not about the problems I solve, but the problems they solve. And when they articulate how they solve that on a wiki and share that publicly for the world, and then go in and correct each other's work and share what they're learning with each other, that's what really kind of allows them to show off what they know. It's not the projects I assign, it's the projects they design. These kids did this project for me. They created the problems, they solved the problems, they explained it in Halo using an Xbox 360 and then published it on YouTube. So it's not about any of the tools that I use, because tools should be like oxygen. Technology should be in your classroom the same way that you breathe. Clay Shirky says that technology doesn't become socially interesting until it becomes technologically boring. And it's not about the connections that they make with those machines. It's about the mentorships that get established, the connections that you can make with other people through those computers. And it's the guiding hand of another adult, maybe far away, but it feels like they're right next to you. I'm talking too fast. Mentorship, I bring in mentors from all over the world that work with my students, and it's about being curious about what's going on inside those kids' heads. How do we get to see what's going on inside their heads? I don't get any pictures about what's going on behind their eyes, but when they write it and publish it, I do. But what's also curious to me is what's going on inside my own head as a teacher. Now, if this is the first time that you're sipping the electric Kool-Aid, well, after, that's when things really get turned on for you. because it's not really about any of the things that I've been talking about tonight. It's about the difference that you can make. Thanks.